Imagine a world where every country's economy is a ship sailing on a vast ocean. Sometimes the waters are calm and trade flows smoothly. Other times, fierce storms arise, threatening to capsize even the sturdiest vessels. In this often turbulent world of global finance, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, acts as a crucial lifeguard and financial firefighter. It is an international organization designed to ensure the stability of the global monetary system, the system of exchange rates and international payments that enables countries and their citizens to transact with each other. The IMF works to prevent economic crises, manage them when they occur, and promote sustainable growth among its member nations. It is a cornerstone of the post-World War II economic order, created to foster cooperation and prevent the kind of economic nationalism that contributed to global conflict. The story of the IMF begins in July 1944, a time when the world was still engulfed in the final devastating chapters of the Second World War. Delegates from 44 Allied nations gathered at a resort in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in the United States. The IMF's mandate is guided by a clear set of objectives, laid out in its Articles of Agreement. First and foremost, its primary goal is to promote international monetary cooperation. It provides the machinery for consultation and collaboration, ensuring countries have a platform to discuss policies and find common ground. Second, it aims to facilitate the expansion and balanced growth of international trade. By promoting stable economies, the IMF creates a predictable environment where businesses can invest, trade, create jobs. This contributes to higher employment and real incomes worldwide. Third, the IMF promotes exchange rate stability. It works to maintain orderly exchange arrangements and to avoid competitive exchange depreciation. To meet these goals, the IMF has three main functions. First, lending. IMF loans can help rebuild international reserves. Second, surveillance. The IMF monitors economic and financial policies of its 190 members. Third, technical assistance and training, capacity development. It helps countries strengthen policy design and implementation. The organizational structure of the IMF is designed to reflect its global membership, though power is not distributed equally. At the very top of the hierarchy is the Board of Governors. This body consists of one governor and one alternate governor, appointed by each of the 190 member countries. Because the Board of Governors meets only annually, it delegates most of its day-to-day work to the Executive Board. It is composed of 24 executive directors who represent all 190 member countries: United States, Japan, China, Germany, United Kingdom. Each appoint their own executive director. The remaining 19 directors are elected by groups of countries known as constituencies. The executive board is chaired by the managing director. The current managing director is Kristalina Georgieva from Bulgaria. The managing director oversees a staff of approximately 2,700 economists, statisticians, researchers. This entire structure is underpinned by a quota system. The United States, being the world's largest economy, has the largest quota. This is significant because major IMF decisions require an 85% supermajority, effectively giving the United States a veto power. The IMF's primary tool for assisting countries in crisis is its lending programs. These programs are designed to provide temporary financing, to help nations overcome balance of payments problems. Instead, IMF loans are general financial support to a country's central bank. The most common lending arrangement is the standby arrangement, or SBA, which addresses short-term balance of payments issues. Another key tool is the Extended Fund Facility, the EFF, used for countries facing more serious, medium-term structural problems that require deeper and longer-lasting reforms. For low-income countries, the IMF offers loans on concessional terms, meaning at very low or even zero interest rates. The main programs for this are Extended Credit Facility, ECF, Standby Credit Facility, SCF, Rapid Credit Facility, RCF. In addition to these, the IMF also has Precautionary Credit Lines, Flexible Credit Line, FCL, Precautionary and Liquidity Line, PLL. As mentioned earlier, a country's access to IMF financing and its voting power are determined by its quota. This quota is calculated using a complex formula that considers variables like GDP economic openness, international reserves economic variability. A larger quota means a larger financial commitment, a greater say in decision-making, a larger amount of financing it can potentially borrow. A unique asset created by the IMF is the Special Drawing Right, or SDR. The SDR is not a currency itself, but an international reserve asset that member countries can use to supplement their official reserves. The value of the SDR is not tied to any single currency. Instead, it is based on a basket of 5 major international currencies: US dollar, euro, Chinese renminbi, added 2016, Japanese yen, British pound. The IMF can allocate SDRs to its members as it did during the 2009 global financial crisis and again in 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic, providing countries with a much-needed boost to their liquidity without adding to their debt burdens. India's relationship with the International Monetary Fund is a long and dynamic one, mirroring the nation's own economic evolution. India was one of the 44 original signatories of the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, a founding member of the IMF. In the early decades after independence, India maintained a cautious engagement with the fund. It drew on IMF resources on several occasions to manage temporary balance of payments difficulties, but these were relatively small amounts. For much of this period, India pursued a state-led, inward-looking economic model: import substitution, extensive government controls. The most dramatic chapter came in 1991. By then, India faced a severe economic crisis. Foreign exchange reserves had dwindled to cover only a few weeks of essential imports. The government was on the brink of default. India turned to the IMF for a substantial bailout loan. The IMF agreed to finance the rescue, but it came with stringent conditions, requiring a sweeping program of economic liberalization. The government, led by Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao and Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, initiated bold reforms, devalued the rupee, slashed tariffs and trade barriers, opened up to foreign investment, began deregulating domestic industry. The reforms were initially painful and controversial, but are widely credited with unleashing India's economic potential. The 1991 crisis and the IMF-mandated response set India on a new path: high growth and rapid integration with the global economy. In the years since, India's relationship with the IMF transformed. India paid back its loans ahead of schedule, transitioned from borrower to contributor. Today, India is a creditor to the IMF, providing resources to lend to other nations. India plays an active role in IMF governance, seat on the executive board. This journey, from a cautious member to a crisis borrower, and finally to a key contributor and influential voice, encapsulates India's rise as a major global economic player. Despite its crucial role in the global financial system, the International Monetary Fund has been the subject of intense criticism and debate for decades. One of the most persistent critiques concerns the policy conditions or conditionalities that it attaches to its loans. Critics argue these conditions often involve forcing borrowing countries to adopt harsh austerity measures, cutting government spending on health, cutting government spending on education, privatizing state-owned enterprises. Another major line of criticism targets the IMF's governance structure and the distribution of voting power. The United States, de facto veto power; European countries, significant voting bloc. The IMF has been accused of a one-size-fits-all approach, often prescribing the same free market reforms, the Washington Consensus, to countries with very different economies, politics, and societies. To address these long-standing criticisms and maintain its legitimacy in a rapidly changing world, the IMF is under constant pressure to reform. A central demand is for a significant overhaul of its governance structure to better reflect the new realities of the global economy. China, India, Brazil now account for a much larger share of global GDP than they did when the fund was created. Looking ahead, the IMF faces new and complex challenges. Climate change is a massive threat to economic stability. The rise of digital currencies, growing global debt, fallout from geopolitical tensions. For students and curious learners, understanding the IMF is essential to making sense of the modern world. Civil services exam prep, studying economics, studying international relations, following the news. IMF knowledge is indispensable. Argentina's currency crisis, Sri Lanka's debt, restructuring, global trade and finance debates. The IMF is often at the center. Learn its functions, its power dynamics, the controversies. You gain a critical lens to understand globalization. It equips you to be a more informed citizen capable of engaging in the great debates about our shared